Do we say sláinte or is that just too on the nose?
Sláinte, why not? We're all Irish today.
Aren't we? Drinking our rosé as Irishmen are off
Under the
to
LA
do.
sun, as Irish as we can get.
I almost broke the law by not drinking immediately after cheersing, you know. You would have been well within your right to just murder me, since I watched you drink after we cleaned our glasses.
Oh, yeah. So I could have your car that's down the driveway?
You could.
Nice.
You may. Who wants a Yugo? But I
Probably
mean,
sell it for parts, honestly. But welcome.
thank you, man.
Thanks for being here.
Long time coming.
Yeah. Me and Troy have been trying to meet up for, it was like years before we actually met. And I was like, oh, you're at PAX? Cool, so am I. Like, let's meet up. And then
Tinder.
yeah.
No.
All it took was that one swipe right. I spent $5 to super like your ass.
Well, this is what I do. This is what I found out afterwards, though, that kind of frustrated me. No, it really frustrated me. And I think spawned a much larger conversation. We did meet before, or we almost met before we really met, in the lovely state of Indiana at a con when you were just a budding YouTuber. And you told me, we were at the same show.
Yeah, Indie PopCon.
Indie PopCon.
2015?
Sure. I believe
Sure,
you.
why not?
I mean, that's a number that people use. And you didn't come up. There was like weird green room space that was like overlooking the whole thing.
Yeah, it was like
very weird.
It's like a stadium almost.
Yeah.
It's like box tickets.
And the guy that played Q from Star Trek was there.
Yep. Yeah, you were doing a signing. And I was like, oh my God.
Hey, I had to do I was like, and I'm done. My job here is done.
$450,000.
The 100 person showed up, and there you are. And it was for Persona. It's the craziest thing.
Wow.
I'm not.
No?
No.
It was for Snow in Final Fantasy 13.
It would have been. Which my hair.
Yeah, you're getting closer to it now.
The truth, I want to look more like my son. I was a towhead when I was born. I was like bleach blonde. And my son came out. It was fun when he was first born. I say fun now in retrospect because when he was born, our midwife that was there attending the delivery, as they say, said, look at that dark head of hair. And I went, whose baby is this? And then we were like, is it going to, because my wife, has red hair. We're like, is he going to be a redhead? Is he going to be whatever this is? And then he's just blonde. So I was like, I want to look more like my son. So I'm 43.
You started shitting your pants.
I'm gonna start shitting my pants.
Start smelling like my son.
My son, I had Daddy Dude Day for a couple of days. And I was like, dude, you know what, man? Just the dudes don't have to rock a diaper. I don't want to put a diaper on you right now. So he's walking around the house and he kind of looks at me and just kind of does that blank stare. And I was like, you okay? What's going on? And he shit on the floor.
Hell yeah.
And it looked like a novelty thing. It wasn't like, oh, that's feces. It was like, who put like a fake piece of poop
It's like the poop emoji just sitting
on
on
the
your
floor? Yeah.
I mean, his name's Traveler.
Traveler.
He needs to do stuff like that. He needs to be in the woods.
Yeah.
Rubbing against trees.
He's an outside kid, man. He loves being outside.
That's good.
The inside is, if we're inside, we're reading books, or shitting on the floor, or we're wanting to go outside. And every day is something new, like some new kind of fascination just comes online and you watch. And he's like, oh, I understand. This is the color blue.
You're watching his brain turn on.
Yeah, like switch by switch. It's the most fascinating thing that personally I've ever experienced.
Do you think, because I have a brother who's like around the same age as you and he has kids and everything, and he always talks about, he was like all over the place when he was younger. He was an alcoholic, he did a lot of drugs and everything, and then had a kid, and it was just like, and now he's like one of the best people I know in the world. And he keeps talking about how he never understood it until he had a kid, that like, no, I will die for this person.
Yeah.
And he just immediately like had all this responsibility, and he was just matured completely.
It's a romantic notion when it's hypothetical, but when it becomes practical, I can't explain it. I can't describe it. It's just like, well, yeah, like that's grass and that's a chair, and I would willfully step in front of a bus to save my son. And right when he was born, like he's born, And our midwife goes, smell him. And I was like, no, there's been 40 hours of just triage happening from whence he was spawned. I don't need this. And she goes, smell him. And I was like, all right, I did. And he smelled like honey. Like that's the only thing I can describe. He smelled literally like honey. And that's not me, dude. I'm not a bodily fluids guy. And that was, you have to get immediately into the suck. And Pam and I were in that for 40 hours straight. No sleep, no rest, just
Sweet
constant pain. No drugs. She's a warrior. We are by far the weaker species. Because I saw what she did. And my contribution to that comparatively is just pales in comparison. But I counted his fingers and toes because I wanted to see if he was normal. And I realized that there was this fear in me that all of the truly terrible things that I've done in my life, which I can file justifiably under bad decisions and my youth and just figuring stuff out, which is hard to justify retroactively now in our culture, to look back and go, oh, I was a douchebag. And you and I could agree that the things that I said and the things that I did, I can look back now through 20, 30, 15, whatever years of wisdom and go, that's absolutely not acceptable, but I did those things.
Yeah.
And you just hope that somehow, whether it be grace or providence or something biologically happens that acts as a filter. So that just stays with me, and then I become this filter. I'm the sin eater for him.
Yeah.
And Traveler is the best of both of us.
Mm-hmm.
He's the best of Pam. He's the best of me. And I hope that all I can hope for. He's gonna make mistakes. I just don't want him to make my mistakes. And if I do that, then I'm being a good parent.
Yeah. Well, that's the cycle, isn't it? You either repeat your parents or you break the cycle.
Yeah.
You either do the same mistakes that they've done and then you just end up becoming your parents, or you end up breaking that cycle and learn from it.
Dude, we've talked about Marcus Aurelius in this book that I've been obsessed with.
Now, I need to preface that
By what?
with, I was sitting at home.
Yeah, I want to know how that text came through on your side.
I don't, well, it's also like time difference as well. I was just sitting at home, killing it as I was. And all of a sudden I was like, dude, you gotta read this book that I'm into right now. It's by Marcus Aurelius. And I was like, isn't that Russell Crowe from The Gladiator?
That was Richard Harris's character. The character played by, or the movie played by Russell Crowe. But I got, and I think I was sitting out in my backyard, and I've got this rocker that's there, and we got this fish pond, and that becomes my little haven. I sit out there in the morning, and I read, and I've been reading this book since March of 2018. And it's 99 pages, and I'm on page, I think it just crossed over page like 91 or 92.
Yeah.
And there's times when I read just 2 lines. And a perfect example. There's like 3 or 4 entries, and he talks about dance, and he talks about theater, and he's just kind of, the setup is this. He was regarded as one of the greatest emperors of Rome. And in the last 12 years of his life, I think, from a war camp, which Gladiator sets up perfectly, when Joaquin Phoenix comes in and he's like, have I missed the battle? And my son, you've missed the war. And he has that conversation where he makes Russell Crowe if you haven't seen the movie, it's brilliant. But he's writing, and he's being wistful, and he's kind of musing to himself into Russell Crowe's character as like, how will they remember me? Will I be remembered as a tyrant? Will I be remembered as a philosopher? This is that book that he's writing. And it was never meant to be published. It was never meant to be read by a single other human. And it was called To Himself. And posthumously, they called it Meditations, the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. And in it, he is looking back to the past, and he's going, oh man, Epictetus and Socrates and all those guys, they had it right. So we always kind of, and we do this now, we look back and we go, all the good old days.
Yeah.
And somehow they knew something that we didn't, and we've lost it, and we need to get it back. And we look to the future and go, well, hopefully they're going to figure this out in the future, because we don't have it figured out yet. But I'm sitting here reading this book, and I feel like I can call myself a Stoic, and that I've really worked to get, in a lot of ways I've worked to get my temper under control, and to detach myself from the trappings of life, of especially being an actor, to not fret about the job you didn't get or the attention that you don't have. And in the society that we have where it's all about, do you like me? Do you like this?
Definitely.
Is this acceptable? Validate me. To learn to not need that has been my struggle. I feel good. And then this Sunday, I'm in my car, Traveler's in the back, and we're just chilling. Daddy Dude Day, we're going up and down Ventura.
Shit on the floor.
Shitting on the floor. Same day, actually. And this car, this Prius, just cuts over 3 lanes, and I slam on the brakes, and they're just trying to make the turn. And Traveler was kind of singing along the songs. He has great taste in music, by the way. And he stops, so it kind of freaks him out. And so I kind of slow roll up next to the person for no reason. And they go, sorry. And I was like, no, it's not cool.
Yeah.
And there's a girl that's driving and a guy that's in the passenger seat. And he rolls down the window. And he's like, what? And I was like, hey, man, you just cut over 3 lanes. I've got a 16-month-old boy in the back. You can't do that. Okay? And he goes, all right. She said you're sorry, asshole. And I went, and I feel it from the bottom of my feet. All of the angst and the righteous indignation just shoots up into my being and fills me. And I'm like, I'm the asshole? I'm in traffic. I'm in a car. And I'm like, big man talk. And I just, finally it drives away. And it stayed with me. And then you start doing the whole playback, right? Of like, I should have said, oh, this would have been the perfect thing to say. If that guy had done this, if you hadn't been in the car, and instantly I'm like, holy shit, I'm my dad.
Oh, damn. And
I remember being 6, 8, 10, 12 years old, multiple times when my dad would have road rage. I was like, man, I'm no matter, I thought there was a lot of distance between me and that version of myself, and then I look and he's right next to me. And it's, the temptation is for that to be defeating. And it just shows me that I have more work to do.
Yeah.
And so to go back to Marcus Aurelius, he's talking about dance, and he's talking about wrestling, and he's talking about theater, and he's talking about all these different kind of art forms. And he says to himself, what is your art? And his response is to be good. Master that. Master that. Let that be your great masterpiece, is that you are good. Because that is something that, just as painters are trying to master the craft of hands, or sculptors are trying to really master the replication of anatomy, or the realism of the body, or of a, I didn't know this either. Still lifes were like a calling card for artists. Did you know this?
No.
Because it showed the attention to detail. And so if you did a still life, it was like, that would be like my audition reel.
Oh.
It would be like a demo reel to go, well, before you go painting us, can you paint that banana? And let's see what you do with that. And so there's these priceless pieces of art that were really nothing but just, can you please give me money for doing something that I'll eventually do? So yeah, I still find that I struggle with that.
Yeah, because that's the kind of type of stuff that I struggle with a lot. Because I don't come from like the homeliest of family lives. Like, I'm not connected with my mom. I'm not connected with my dad. All the males in my family are all reformed alcoholics. And for a long time I was worried, like, that demon's in me. I need to, like, I'll deal with that whenever it occurs and see where my limits are. Thankfully, I've never had to, because I guess it's just not in me the way it was in them. But
did you ever have that moment where you're like, okay, so this is my limit? Or was it just that proclivity never showed itself in you?
Kind of the latter, but I did have, I mean, everyone kind of has those moments when you're a teenager where you just get fucking, 21 when you're here, but everyone drinks when they're a teenager.
Yeah.
But
because you should be allowed to.
Yeah, but I was like 17 and I got like completely blackout drunk. Also shit on the floor. I was like, maybe let's
you are my son.
Never get there again. But no, it's just, I never have that like it's not like a temptress to me. I know when I've had enough. I don't enjoy the feeling of like being drunk. Tipsy maybe, but not like, I don't like getting hammered.
It was my creature of my 20s for sure.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while I do like the brake check. And it's like, who's got who by the tail? And I'll just stop completely.
Yeah.
But I never, like, drugs were never my thing. I didn't smoke weed until I moved out of California, and I think I was like 35 maybe or something.
Yeah.
So that, I think I was always scared. The one time that I remember, like, I want to try that. We were on tour, or we weren't on tour, but we were opening up for like a big national act, and I was a musician, and our band was, we would get the call to be like, hey, this band is a really big deal, and we can pay you nothing, and you'll go direct support for them, and we would benefit from their crowd, and we would feel like rock stars for the night.
Yeah.
So we were backstage partying with them. We had a shared space, and they let us share it with them, which was not always the case. And I look over, and these guys are like, yeah, man, and they are chopping up rails, and I was like, I've seen that in movies before,
Yeah.
but I've never actually seen that. And all I did was just go, and my body just went in that direction, and my guitarist put his hand on my chest. He goes, not you, not ever, because we'll never get you back. And I was like, huh. He was probably right. Like
Yeah.
at that point in my life, at 22 years old, whatever, it was like, Joe Perry from Aerosmith described cocaine as the breath of God. And I'm like, I mean, there's a gaggle of people that have lost their entire lives over the thing.
Yeah.
It probably isn't a bad thing, and that's not the problem. It's the control.
Yeah.
It's not that it's like, oh no, it's terrible. It's a wonderful thing. It will just destroy your life because in comparison everything else sucks, even though that's not true.
Yeah, that was my thing with like alcohol and like any sort of drugs or anything, because I've never done like drugs either, but it's always that thing where it's like, I don't like losing control. I don't like feeling like I'm not in control of my body. I like my faculties. I like knowing what I'm doing. And I think it's also, it's kind of a paranoia at the same time, because now that some people know who I am, I'm always worried that I'll do something stupid, because it runs in the family to a degree. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want to lose control and then do something that's going to fuck me up.
And then you don't get to do this anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the thing that scares me, is now you can't. And by the way, I don't have a problem with that notion of the higher up on the, whatever you want to call this pyramid of celebrity, fame, responsibility, you have less freedoms.
Yeah.
That's just, there's a wonderful Jerry Seinfeld show, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. And
good
he's
show.
there with Zach Galifianakis. And he's like, oh, God, there's people just next to us took a picture. He goes, okay. He's like, don't you hate that? He's like, no, I'm in public. I'm in public, of course they're going to take a picture. Yeah, but your private life. He goes, you don't have a private life. And this is just someone who, I don't think it's just because he's achieved such a level of success. I believe that level of success allowed him to achieve his alpha form, which is, I just don't care.
Yeah.
And I can't care about those things.
Yeah.
It's like, well, there are pictures of you out on the internet. It's like, what are they going to do? They're going to put them on the internet.
Yeah.
6 people are going to see them. And that's the same thing that I feel when someone, lashes out on social or says something that I'm like, either maybe I agree with, and I'm like, yeah, I want to stir that pot with you, or I vehemently disagree with them. So what?
Yeah.
So what? What's the worst thing that happens? I mean, the worst thing that happens is
You die, Troy. You die.
You lose your career.
You die on Twitter, you die in real life.
It's like the Matrix.
Yeah, that's the stuff, because you were talking about that, like, overcoming stuff and not caring anymore. And I'm still in that transitional period where I cared a lot when I started off doing this, like
Too much.
6 years ago. And I just gave over, I talked about this in the video with Aaron that we did, that I gave over so much of myself to everybody. And the people who relate to that, who like the stuff you do and gel along with it, it's all great. But at the same time, I feel like people leaned a little too heavily on me sometimes to like help them with their mental health, because I was going through my own journey. And when I felt like I figured some stuff out, being like, no, I don't care about this thing anymore. I'm still working on this, but I've gotten to a point where I'm overcoming things.
Yeah.
And I think some people out there then see that and they're like, well, I want to do that. But then they lean a little too heavily on you and burden you with some issues.
You develop a relationship with people by proxy, right? And like what we're doing, Nolan North and I, my dear friend and compatriot, and now we're wedded to each other basically with this channel that we're doing. I believe firmly that community can solve, like we're social creatures, we're social animals. And everything, there's a lot of elements right now that are happening. God damn, this is deep. I love this shit, whatever. There's a lot of things that are the external forces that are the most present right now work to make us feel as disparate as possible. And they're very polarizing. And I look to every other country and I don't see the same monikers that are applied to label, which I think is hilarious. I do believe there's something in us innately as humans that we need to put a name on shit.
Oh, yeah.
The first thing that people ask when they see my son, what's his name?
Yeah.
I want to know what his name is.
That's how you relate. So then, like, I know what this thing is to call it when something happens with it.
Sure. A disease, we will name it before we cure it.
Yeah.
It was like, that thing that was killing everybody, by the way, the thing was called cancer.
Yeah.
Ugh, that was terrible.
Took us 6 weeks to come up with that name.
6 weeks. We came up with the cure in 3. So there's a lot of things that act upon us right now that make us feel like we're super different. You know, you're Irish, okay? Okay? And we'll go with European if you want to as well, but I'm American, or I'm a Californian, or a Texan if you really want to get proper about it. And we try to put as many labels as we can on it. Well, because it's such a powerful identity factor of what I belong to.
Yeah.
I got so, went down the rabbit hole of my own.
You're talking about community and retro.
Community, thank you. I believe that community solves a lot of those problems.
Yeah.
Because now we have screen names to hide behind. So there's, not only is my identity being usurped by this false sense of myself that I'm presenting to everybody. Now I have a screen name, and you can call that, and I can do whatever I want willy-nilly.
Yeah.
It's like we're in cars constantly, and I can yell across to another guy in another lane, and he can call me an asshole, and we can say the most vile things that we would never say to each other.
Yeah.
But we're hiding behind the internet. And I believe that community can spawn, like, a lot of it can potentially bring forth a lot of the things that will inevitably cure a lot of those problems.
Yeah.
But with that is community is commune. It's relationship. It's being in a relationship with people. So sometimes people can take that to, like, we're best friends. I'm like, but this is the relationship that we have. And that's great. That's good because I don't have that relationship with anybody else. But it's not the same relationship that I have with my inner circle. And when Pam and I had Traveler, our circle got really, really small, and our world got really, really small. And I don't know if you've ever had to break up with a friend, but like I've gone through that, and it's cool how life starts preparing you, going, you don't have space in your life. You have so many people, you have so many friends, and your entire life is in service to those friends and those relationships. And there's about to be a dude that's going to take up all that space, and you need to move. You need to make room for him. And we didn't know that before I told Pam we were never gonna have kids. Oops. And then I found out that it's really fun to have sex. And then you go, sure, if that's the price of admission, sure. No. And so life started kind of clearing out a path. And there are some relationships that I thought I would always have that I no longer do.
Yeah.
And squaring that circle was part of the thing that spawned me on to like Marcus and understanding how do I, because it broke me, man.
Yeah.
And I had to find a way to like look at that and go, okay, this can't be the answer. I can't feel like this forever.
Yeah, it's weird because we also live in a weird culture where like cancel culture is such a big thing now. Where
Cancel culture?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Where if you do something wrong, you're canceled. You're done.
Yeah, like your life.
Yeah.
Like your livelihood is done.
But it's not only that, it's now the connections you have with people that get you canceled. So if we're hanging out, we do this, and then you say something that I don't agree with, then everyone's like, you can't hang out with him anymore. Cut him out of your life, cancel, done. It's like, it's not how humans work. It's like, sure, we may disagree on things, but the point of it all is that You're supposed to talk through it, come to a common ground. Sure, you may like a certain thing that I don't like, or if people love to bring up politics and not align that way. But at the same time, it's like, who gives a shit? Just
Well, that's the point of discourse. The point of discourse is to go, okay, so I disagree with you, but why? Why do
Yeah.
I disagree with you? And like you said, we find the common ground, and that should bring a different perspective onto mine. I go, you know what? That's the whole reason why I got this thing, dude. The Hegelian dialectic. It's the thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And Hegel, it's attributed to him, but it was actually, he used a different form, but the words are the best analog for it. It's like, I have my view, I have my thesis, you have your antithesis.
yeah,
So together what we do is we bring something together and we find a synthesis that is kind of the best parts of both of our perspectives, and that's how we solve a problem.
yeah,
And so I did these 3 circles with this straight line with 2 points, because the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. To get to that solution as fast as possible. Pam and I always call it, let's get to the good.
yeah,
Because when the good is this good, you don't want to be out of it. You want to get to the good.
yeah,
And whenever we would have a fight, I remember the first time we did this, it was actually at our friend Travis and Laura's wedding. We'd never really fought, and we had like a fight. And we were walking to a Starbucks, and I was walking ahead of her, which I knew was like her thing. Like, that's a pet peeve, don't do that.
yeah,
And you probably have those things where you're like, ooh, okay, I now have enough time into this person where if I do this thing, I'm gonna get shit for it later. So you don't do that thing. You can do all this other stuff, and that's fine. But you don't do this thing. If you do this thing intentionally, man, now
Yeah.
you're pushing buttons. And so I realized I was doing that. I stopped, and I let her catch up to me, and I turned back, and I to this day can't tell you if it was me or her that said it first, and I'd be happy to give her the credit for it. It's like, what do we got to do to get to the good? I want to get to the good. And most often, it's an apology. It's just like, you can't be angry and apologize sincerely.
yeah.
So I've learned how to rapidly get to that apology and go, I'm sorry. I want to be the first to apologize. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, I've done shit as well, like, even doing this kind of stuff where I'm like, yeah, that wasn't my best move. That wasn't the best effort I could have done. I fucked up, but, like, accountability is the important factor in it. People love to tell you what you should be accountable for.
Right?
Versus what you feel like you should be accountable for.
I find comfort in the mea culpa. Like, it instantly humanizes you, instantly relates you to people. It's the notion of, without naming names, people that will double down on a mistake that they did and defend it. I don't understand that mentality, because if you want to be a man of the people or person of the people, rush to go, can you believe I just said that? I was terrible. Of course
Yeah.
I didn't mean that. Of course I didn't mean that this state was going to be included in this terrible natural disaster. My bad, guys. That's how you win people over.
Yeah.
Is you show them you and I are just alike. You don't ever try to elevate, because the only way you can elevate is by oppressing people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are tricky. Well, they're not, but they are.
Living is hard.
Sucks, man. Yeah, but that's the thing about, like, social culture now is people, which, I mean, I get. People want to feel safe. People want to discover things, but I'm always of the notion that everybody you meet has something to teach you.
Yeah.
It may not be good, may be just indifferent, but everybody has something to give. Everyone has value. Everyone has something to teach you about yourself and the world around you. And that's what I love. I love just meeting people and opening my mind and being like, man, I really don't have all the answers. Before I did YouTube, I didn't know what, like, LGBTQ people go through. And now I have a
Right.
bunch of people in the community who are all part of that side of life who, like, inform me about things. And people from different countries and races and religions and everything. I'm like, geez, I didn't even think about this. It's that idea of, like, learning from people and
Yeah.
growing and being part of it and being, like, gelling together. It's like what I said at the end of my show, that we're all people at the end of the day, like, trying to figure it all out together. And it's when somebody feels like they have all the answers and they're going to tell you how you should live your life that it starts becoming a problem.
Most people who don't like, are against LGBTQ is a perfect example. Well, I don't think that's what they should be doing. Is like, can you tell me one friend that you have that falls under any one of those? No.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Then you have like you said, you have no idea what they've gone through. And what you realize is under all the labels that we've given, if you strip all those away, it's a human, it's a person. Having a child, you look, man, we were all of us at one point were 16-month-old kids shitting on the floor. All of us. We have that all in common, whether you want to admit it or not. The hottest girl that you're trying to hit on was once a 16-month-old that probably shit on the floor.
Everyone's shit their pants.
Everyone has shit their pants. And that, if nothing else, if that is the great common denominator that unites us as a species, it's that. But life isn't safe.
No.
I believe in having a safe space because that's what makes it special. If I have a safe space, which comes from relationship, man, if ever I need to go run and hide, which sometimes I will need to, that's how we survived as a culture. As a species, we did that, is because we didn't always just fight. There were times when we were like, we gotta run.
Yeah.
That is a woolly mammoth that we can't kill. We need to run. So you don't always have to fight. Sometimes you have to run and hide, and you need to find a safe space where you can do that.
Yeah.
Shelter is great. But I can't go through life. Perfect example. I'm going to bring it back to Traveler again. We started walking around and baby-proofing everything. And we put things on corners. And there's some stuff that we do, like we plugged at the plates and power outlets and whatnot. But we started realizing he's going to bump his head. He's going to fall down. We were same day walking down Ventura Boulevard, and we're having a good day, and he's just strutting his stuff. He's having a great day. He walks so well. Trip, boom, bam, forehead on pavement. I heard it. It bounced.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, he's done. Like, that's it. You know, that's every hope that I had for him was lost in that moment. And he gets up, and he's got this raspberry right there, and there's like dirt, and I'm going, and we always ask him this. We never say, you're okay. No, he's not. He just fell down. How do you feel, bud? How do you feel? And he'll either look and he'll shake it off and he'll keep walking, or he cries for a little bit. And my job as his dad is to pick him up and go, dude, I saw that.
Yeah.
That sucks. I'm here. Get it out. Whatever you need to feel right now, feel it. I don't sit there and go, shh, 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 you're okay, you're okay. Quiet, quiet, quiet. Because when he's 18, 22, whatever, he's going to come to me, or not come to me, when he has some hurt and some pain, because my entire life, and I go, why don't you talk to me and tell me what's wrong? I was like, because you've been making me tell you to shut up for my entire life and tell me that I'm okay when I'm not. I'm not okay.
Yeah.
So my job is to not tell him he's okay. If anything, it's like, it's going to be okay. But even if it's not, I'm still going to be here.
Yeah, and that's also a good example, like going back to what we were just talking about, where like that's your thing. That's how you deal with stuff. That's like your parenting method, which some people then will come out and be like,
oh, you absolutely should hit your child if they're crying.
Yeah, like so, some people will always have their opinion on how you should do things.
And you will find out, should you ever have kids, they will come out in droves. And you go, cool, thank you for that unsolicited piece of advice.
But that's the thing, is like, that's your way of dealing with it. But you would never go around and be like, you should deal with your kid that way.
Travis and Laura are two of our closest friends. Their son and ours are 2 months apart.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of ways that we are aligned and a lot of ways that we are different. And if you want to find out real quick how to piss a friend off or lose a friend, it's tell them how they should parent. And they are both really, really good, and we try to do the same thing of not going, well, you know what you should probably do? Oh, this is probably this.
Yeah.
And it sucks too when you're 2 months ahead. Perfect example, man. 16 months in, no sickness. Finally, Traveler hits a fever. And it goes from 102.7 to 104.5. We have a great pediatrician that we can text and be like, hey, are we going to the hospital? And he's like, they always look like they need to go to ER. He's totally fine. I'm like, great. This year, for some reason in California, spiders have been out in, like, they've been a force of nature, literally. He had 5 spider bites on him because he loves being outside.
Yeah.
And I'm taking pictures, and I'm like, spider bites, fever, what, this has to correlate. He goes, nope, totally unrelated. Spider bites, vicious, totally fine. I'm like, yeah, sorry to question your 30 years of medical practice, but, and
I'm a parent.
I've been a parent for 16 months, for not even a year and a half. And he was like, it's totally unrelated. I was like, okay. And he goes, you probably have 2 days of fever. You're going to give him, ibuprofen. You're going to give him baths, keep him comfortable, and just bear down, Dad. That's what you do. And I'm like, yeah, keep your phone on you. And I was like, just want to send you more pictures about the spider bite. He's like, yep, totally unrelated. I'm like, sure, maybe it's this. He's like, stay off Wikipedia, stay off WebMD. Just trust me on this. I'm like, okay. He's like, it's something viral. I'm like, he's not snotty, he's not sneezing, he's not coughing, he hasn't been around other kids where he can get sick, whatever. 2 days later, boom, fever drops, breaks, he's back to normal, he's totally fine, everything's cool. And then next day, Pam goes, what's that on his belly? And he has this rash called roseola. It's a common, kids get it. You have it for 2 days. It's a completely benign, but it's a viral infection that starts with 2 days of a fever and then 2 days of a rash, and they never get it again. And I was like, man. So it was this wonderful lesson of humbling, but Travis and Laura had that before. And the temptation for us to go, Traveler's getting his first fever, for them to go, it's probably just this, it's roseola, you need to calm down. But everyone told us roseola, I was like, oh man, how's he doing? Is he great? Yeah, they do so well with maintaining that balance and letting us parent and we let them parent and we get along great.
That's great. Enough about your fucking kid, okay?
Okay, yeah, it's terrible.
Are you one of those people that all your stories revolve around your kid now? Do you go around showing pictures constantly?
I don't. I will show people pictures if they go, it has become the answer to like, hey, what's going on with you? And I'm like, this? Because it's the most fascinating thing that's going on. I was like, this guy learned what the color blue is. And a dude, when he says my name, it's all I need in the world. That's all I need in the world. When he goes, da-dee, I'm like, you're fucking A-right, it is.
When he says Troy.
Yeah, Troy, your name is Troy. Those days will come, I'm like, hey, don't you ever call me that again. And we would look at him and was like, where's Daddy? And he points to me. And he's like, where's Mommy? And he points to Pam. And we're like, where's Monkey? And he goes, boom. I'm like, yeah, man, you have a sense of self already. So, yeah, anyway.
Calling your kid a monkey, okay.
So, you were pivoting away and I brought you right back. So, no, I do typically respond with what's going on. People are always wanting to know, especially in this town, it's like, so what are you working on? I'm like, stuff, things, it's cool, it's great. I'm trying to raise a son and build an empire. I want to, so those are the two things going on in my life. What's going on with yours?
So what are you working on?
I feel like we're rapidly approaching the finish line for a game that we've been working on for a very long time. It's very near and dear to our hearts. Pac-Man 3. And no,
Part 2.
The Last of Us Part 2.
When does it come out, Troy?
It's gonna come up. It's when the red dot
Neil
appears.
Druckmann's
Yeah. Say it bigger, I dare you. Oh, and just good night.
Ashley got in trouble. Ashley got in trouble for it already by not even saying anything.
She didn't give a real date. She goes, it comes out on February 30th.
Yeah.
It's not a real date.
Everyone's like, it's February.
February. Oh, so it's gonna be February. It's like, guys, it was. Shut up.
Still when it's done.
They announced that there's, a big media event on the 24th. So we'll see what happens from there. But it has been, you do the first one, and we were like the picture that the kid brought to their parents. Like, look what I did. You're like, oh, are you drawing? That's very cute. Can you just keep making the thing that's been wildly successful and do more than that? I love that you want to do your nice little horror drama story, but we really do pulp action. We went from, Jack and Dexter and Crash Bandicoot to Uncharted. That enough was a... Sure.
A little bit of sirens.
Yeah.
Fucking
They're coming to
LA.
get us. See? I start talking about The Last of Us.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is a wonderful conversation.
Nothing happened in between
At
cuts. Nobody came in and told Troy to rein it in. That's not actually a shrub next to him. That's somebody dressed up with a gun to his head.
Just out of frame. It's just like, you don't know the release date, do you? You know what the truth is? I don't know the release date.
He says that.
I can look you square in the eye and tell you.
Well, I won't look you in the eye.
'Cause
He
you don't
told me
wanna
what it
believe.
was. It's tomorrow.
It is tomorrow, but everything is tomorrow.
Tomorrow is a relative term. We're not getting there.
I think it's a social construct, man. I don't really believe in time.
The Last of Us actually doesn't exist. It's more of a thought experiment.
More of a like, it's an allegory and a metaphor
Yeah.
for.
So Joel's dead.
So Joel is dead.
The running theory with
and
the internet, which I love pressing you on to see how
off
you
of
react.
one trailer. Off of one trailer.
It's just a bad trailer.
It's a great trailer.
It's a fucking
It is
phenomenal
spawned.
trailer.
I think it's a phenomenal trailer. It was the first thing that we shot. It was the first thing that we did back in those characters.
Here's a good question, because
please.
I want to talk more about work. I know
I'm tired of these terrible questions.
I don't want to bog down the conversation with like work and be like, how did you get started as a voice actor?
No, this is my passion, man. I love this stuff.
But I want to know now, because you did Last of Us 1 as Joel.
Yeah.
I want to springboard off of this.
Now I'm doing it as Ellie.
Don't answer it yet.
Okay.
But I want to, how you prepare for a role like that, not being a dad,
Yeah.
going over a kid. First, I'm going back to your son again. But now you are a dad, and now you're doing a game about your kid. How has that changed you, and how do you actually like get into that headspace for a character like that?
I don't think I could have, being the person that I am now, experiencing what I have now, I don't know if I could go back and do that scene again.
The intro?
Yeah.
That fucking broke me.
Me too. And to this day it does. I have not watched that scene or played that. I haven't played the game since Traveler's been born. To his credit, Neil Druckmann wrote that after his daughter was born, and that was such the impetus for this story. Was what does a father look like in the loss, or in the aftermath of loss of his daughter? And so there's a whole. I'm constantly building new layers of respect for Neil. I was talking to a director, and he said, "Well, we can't all be Neil Druckmann." And I was like, "Neil Druckmann isn't Neil Druckmann." And most people don't know this, but that was the first thing he directed. And he stepped into that role after we had begun.
Yeah.
And he did so with no title. He was not creative director.
The first game?
The first game. He was not director. He just started doing that responsibility. And nobody questioned him because he did so with authority and with conviction. But his first day of shooting, it's called Ellie Rifle, and it's one of my favorite scenes. And Joel is finally giving Ellie a rifle. And he says, "If I get in trouble down there, you make every shot count." It's one of my most favorite lines in the entire game. And then before he goes down, and so now he's putting this 14-year-old girl in this position to kill people to protect him so that they can advance.
It's also one of the most fun playground areas to
It
actually
is.
fight
It was super tight. Almost feels like a Call of Duty map. Like
that was like the
really
first
small
time
one.
where I played it, and I was like, get it.
Yeah.
I know what you're trying to do with the gameplay now.
Yes. But then right before he leaves, he goes, "Back there, it was either me or him," because she had just killed.
Yeah.
Beautiful story. If you haven't played the game, you absolutely should.
Yes.
Even if you're not a gamer, which I don't know what you're doing watching this, but
It's only gamers who watch this.
only gamers. An 85-year-old woman in Dubuque. I don't believe that, me personally, and Neil and I have talked about this many times, I don't believe it's something that will translate to a film. Just because it's a 12 to 14 hour experience, man. So much is built and predicated upon the tactile, haptic response and relationship of the character.
Well, it's also because it's one of those games that's trying. It's not to undervalue what the experience is, but it's like movie brought into a different medium almost.
Sure.
So it's like, why would you take this story, which has been done in movies, and then just do it again? And because it always ends up. The reason I think game movies never work is because people just get so attached to the characters. Like Uncharted movie coming out, Tom Holland being put in the role as young Drake and everything, but everyone's always going to be like, that's not Sam, that's not Nate, that's not whoever, that's not Joel unless it's your voice doing it.
Well, and invariably, so much, and if you made the game well, then you didn't just tell your story in cinematics, right? There's a layer that's being told in the world. There's a layer that's being told through gameplay. So all of those things harmoniously agree and coalesce.
Yeah.
And it's a symbiotic relationship between the cinematic and the mechanic and the gameplay and the systemic.
Yeah. Otherwise, you get ludonarrative dissonance.
Ludonarrative dissonance. I love that word. But to do so diegetically and be able to have those elements of storytelling take place, but then one of my favorite moments and one of the most revealing character moments of the entire game with Joel doesn't happen in a cinematic, and it's when Ellie and Joel have just gone through an ambush and they're moving through Billstown. They're going in up a stairway, and Ellie asks Joel in gameplay, so as opposed to being on a performance capture stage in the full suits and everything, Ashley and I are next to each other in a booth, and she says, "How did you know about the ambush back there?" And Joel says, "Because I've been on both sides."
Yeah.
And that to me is like, that's all you need to know about that man, right there. The distillation, and I read the script that Neil wrote for the movie, and I was like, oh man, what? Because this character had to leave, and we had to combine these characters. We no longer have this moment, because you can't do that. It's a 12-hour movie.
Yeah.
If not longer. So maybe as a TV series it could work.
Oh,
but
I want everything to be a TV series later.
Kind of right now, right? Like
that's how you get, like, turn every book into a TV series.
Yeah, because I read it for more than 2 hours.
Yeah.
Anything that I've read in 2 hours is. I'm reading a book right now. It took me a year and a half. I want that to be a.
Well, that's already a movie.
That is
In
it
a way.
was Gladiator with Russell Crowe. It won Oscars. But so that's one thing that we're working on. There is this enigmatic, artistic, auteuristic game experience that's coming out, Death Stranding, with a fine up-and-coming actor named Norman Reedus, and then an indie film star, Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah, and a directorial debut by Hideo Kojima. Am I getting that right?
Kojima. You know what's funny is I recently went back and I played through Metal Gear on PlayStation, not the NES, but PlayStation, and I was like, man, I did not remember the credit sequences and how he built this language of a Hideo Kojima game and really being this big cinematic experience, bringing it to the game space. I was like, I just played a game. It was a stealth, cover-based shooter kind of thing.
Tactical espionage action.
There you go. It would be super on brand.
But then he went fucking overboard, and Metal Gear Solid 5 was like a Hideo Kojima game, written by Hideo Kojima.
Phantom Pain was...
Starring Hideo Kojima.
Written, directed, edited, and conceived by... And Phantom Pain was like, there's more credit sequences than Snake had lines.
Yeah, and it ruined the fucking scenes, because it was like starring the frogs, and I was like, oh, I guess they're showing up.
They're showing up. They'll be there. I was backstage at an event, a press junket thing, and I was talking to someone who is working liaison with that team. And he said, this game to Kojima is about his desire to connect with people.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. He's like, because he's always felt like he's never been able to really effectively communicate.
Yeah.
I'm like, but that's all he's done his entire life. And to feel the frustration and the impotency of, it's almost like, I know you love the movie Arrival. And the coolest aspect of that movie is the way that it made me think of, in order to communicate with the species, we must first have them understand the foundational prospect of language.
Yeah.
And what is I? What is
And it's
me?
that one scene at the whiteboard where she's like, we need to understand subject, and the subject infers this, and like, what is this? How do we get this noun across? I'm like, I never thought about it like that.
Never thought about that. And to me, that's Kojima. He's like, I'm trying to tell you what's going on in my head.
Yeah.
So I have to admire it.
I know
Go ahead.
you're not going to get into it or anything because obviously you can't. But I'm really worried about that game because as a fan of Kojima, I love Metal Gear Solid 3 is like my third favorite game of all time.
Okay.
I fucking love that game.
Dark Souls or Bloodborne?
Shadow of the Colossus.
Shadow of the Colossus.
Dark Souls, Bloodborne match. Maybe more Bloodborne. That's more replayable to me. I went back and played Dark Souls and I was like,
This is hard.
this is slow.
Sure. And at Bloodborne, at least the pace of it,
Yeah.
you're dying with more expediency,
Well,
more quickly.
I also like Lovecraft more than I love Tolkien, basically. I like...
Really?
I think.
Okay.
I've always been a dragons kind of guy, but then Bloodborne came out and I'm like, man, cosmic horror is fucking dope.
Tolkien is dragons?
That's what I'm saying. Tolkien is the dragons, but then Lovecraft being like the whole like cosmic horror, like...
Cthulhu.
Yeah,
or
like
Cthulhu, depending on how you want to say it.
But maybe it's just because it's a later game that they made and I just have such an attachment to it. I mean, I fucking put it on my skin.
Yeah, on your skin. I love that tattoo. I really do.
It's a little bigger than it probably should be, but...
No, dude. That was your first one, right?
Yeah, and then I got this one.
Yeah, your first one.
This is the one, I thought about this one first, but I don't know why I got this one first.
I have 10 tattoos. Do you think you'll go full coverage? Like,
No, I like the sporadic. I talked about it with you that the next one I'm getting is from Arrival, which
Yeah.
is the logogram language that says I wanted to get like humanity because I like people, I like commune, I like social aspects of people, but the human one in it is just a full circle that kind of has like a ring at the top. It looks like a wedding ring basically. It's like a circle and then it has like a shape at the top, and I'm like, that doesn't mean anything to me.
okay.
But the walk one is like, it's not a complete circle. So you have a start, you have an end. Or it can mean journey, and it's a little chaotic one way or another. Whichever way you start, it's like, it's either easier at the beginning, harder at the end, or hard at the beginning, easier at the end. And I like the sort of like splotchiness of it being like, no, shit gets hard. Stuff is messy.
Yeah.
But you get through it and you hit the end of that circle. And nothing is forever. Not yet, at least. But
We're working on it.
yeah.
Ray Kurzweil.
But I like that idea that everyone, because I saw somebody, I can't remember who has that tattoo, where it's like, it's an infinity symbol with a music chord, but it doesn't connect. It's not an infinity symbol. It cuts off right at the end, and I like that something has a beginning, it goes its own way, and then it has an end.
I find the finite more comforting than the infinite.
Yeah. No one wants to live forever. You say that, but it's more fear than...
It's not even. I understand, like, when people go, "Yep, that's the tombstone we bought, and that's the burial plot. We're going to be there." And of course, Barbara will be there next to me whenever she goes to.
Why always that accent? What does that say about your relationship with your dad?
A lot. He doesn't sound like that way at all. It's more just like that notion. Like Pam's grandparents were this way, and she, her grandfather died at 92 years old, I think it was.
Same as my grandma.
And just went like, healthy as an ox, out in his garden, tending to tomatoes. I don't feel good. 3 months later, dead.
Literally exact same. 3-month period.
I guess that's. I would want to die like jumping off a cliff. So it's like, okay, I got time to kind of think.
I want to get hit by a blimp. On top of Madison Square Garden.
That can be a listen to me, for a certain price. I got a guy in Jersey that can make that happen. You
You're
tell
hooked
me, wait, with the blimp people, or with the murder people,
The Goodyear people.
Sure, I can make a call for you. Listen, I got a guy. All right,
Kill Troy.
I got a guy that wants to have a certain thing happen to him. We can't discuss over the phone in front of Madison Square Garden. No, not on a fight night. Why would you want to do it on a fight night? Make it like on the operas or something.
When Aerosmith are there.
When Aerosmith, have you ever seen Aerosmith live? You don't want to see them live.
Why?
I like Aerosmith. They're not a live band. They are 100% a studio band.
They're a roller coaster in Disneyland Paris. And it's fucking dope.
They are also an arcade game that you should play once. Just once. Because it's before like this new invention of Aerosmith, and it's probably right before Steven Tyler got sober, and that's how he's sober, he signed off on his like, I'll do a video game, and then you're like, maybe I shouldn't do cocaine anymore. And then they came out with, Crying, and that whole album was my favorite. Like, Get a Grip, great album. Get a Grip's a great album. Pump, you were on drugs. So, one of the toys in the attic, you were on drugs.
God, we keep going off on tangents.
That is my brand, dude.
This is why I wanted to interview you as well,
Okay.
because this is all we do.
It is all about the tangential
But
and the genital.
we talk about later. I need another glass of rosé for that. But
another glass of rosé for my friend to get into the genitalia.
the thing I wanted to ask you about, because everyone is always like, how did you get started? And then everyone's like, okay, this is your job, you make money, whatever. What I always want to know is, like, why people do what they do.
Yeah.
Why do you craft? Why? Because shit gets hard. You have your ups and downs. You hit nerves, anxiety, depression, whatever. But for people at home who are like trying to find themselves all the time, I get a lot of people who are early on in life who are like, I have no idea where I'm going, and then they look to people like us who have like found success or made it.
This is the comfort of Marcus, man. 63 years old, going, you got to get your shit together.
Yeah.
To be able, I don't know where I'm going. And he's writing that as the emperor of the world with all of the resources at his disposal. The thing that comforts me is that there was never a path. It was something that had to be cut down with a machete, and most of the best things that happened to me, I tripped backwards into and fell into. It was all a surprise. There's no class. I'm sure there's a class now, and the only reason why there's a class that exists is because someone found that they can make money.
Because someone like you fucked it up.
It's like you can go, wait a minute, if I rent out a space in a strip mall and I charge people dollars, they'll give that to me because that makes them believe that they're working. And they're working towards something, as opposed to, the reality of this is that it's really, really hard. Not everybody can do it. Not everybody should do it. And most people won't be successful at it.
Yep.
I, through grace, hard work, determination, and dumb fucking luck, got a career. That is just, the way that I got started was I was in a band and we were cutting a record at a studio that just happened to be doing car spots, adverts on the radio. And so they're cutting drums or whatever one day. Nothing's important that you can completely miss. And you didn't take that a dig at all. I love you. You're like, no, I'm a good drummer.
Just live in your truth, man.
I'm a drummer.
I know my place.
I know my place.
I count to 4 and I stop and I start again.
I wandered down the hall and I said, hey, I see you guys are doing car commercials. I'd love to be on the radio. Like, hey, get out. And they kicked me out of the studio, and 2 weeks later, they said, look, if you're interested, let's hear what you can do. So I got in my car and I drove down to the studio, and I wandered in, and the guy was the rudest he could be. He was like, pick up those pieces of copy. That's the pieces of paper with the words on it. I was like, God. And I just got in the booth, and I knew the business end of a mic because I was a singer. And I just did what I heard on the radio, man. I was like, this Sunday. And he was like, okay, well, can you do this? Like, ask your doctor about how Protecia can help, whatever. And I just read through a bunch of stuff. He's like, how much do you charge? He's like, how much should I charge? He goes, this much. And
he
he's
scammed
like,
you.
cool. And I got the job. And I asked him, I was like, why 2 weeks ago you didn't want to know my name? Now I'm your guy. He goes, easy. Guy's done our car spots for the last 25 years, had a heart attack and died. There's not a class for that.
Yeah.
There's not a path for that. There's just, I had to position myself to be in the right place at the right time. And more importantly, I had to be willing and be brave enough to fail miserably.
Yeah.
Because I could have walked in and I've been in over my head. I've been out of my depths. And I've been fired from jobs because I wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Ironically, one of those involved laughing. And it's the first line of the character. I got into the booth, and the stage direction was 30 seconds of building maniacal laughter. I remember those words.
30 seconds?
30 seconds of building maniacal laughter.
Can you help me with that?
Yes.
Sorry about that. 30 seconds of building maniacal laughter.
30 seconds of building maniacal laughter. And I walk in there, and I learned very quickly that
Sorry.
sirens
We're already here.
are
the
cunts.
cause of all our problems.
Alright, I think we're okay at the moment.
I think as we just own it. 30 seconds of 30 seconds of building maniacal laughter. And I learned very quickly that my kryptonite is 30 seconds of building maniacal laughter. I couldn't do it. I ended up sounding like, started off great, but ended up sounding like a dolphin having an asthma attack. And
Yeah, you gotta pace yourself through that.
but you
Start
can't.
low.
It's anime, right? So you were like, I have to match this guy's moving like this.
Oh, okay.
And the director goes, why don't you go and step on out, man? And that was it. I did not get to play that character. So I mean, I've been fired. I have been through, like you said, the ups and the downs. And it wasn't until about 10 years in, I looked back, I was like, oh, I stopped looking at it like a job and started looking at it like a career. And I was like, this is my passion. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And if I want that statement to be a reality and a truth, then I have to give everything I have to this. And I think that moment of decision, people are met with that moment, and they're either prepared for it or they aren't. And some people just think it's a jump off of a cliff, which has never, ever ended well for anybody.
No.
Ever.
That's why it's called jumping off a cliff.
You don't want to jump off a cliff. What you want to do instead is build a bridge. And I'm not saying that this doesn't take faith, and it doesn't take belief in yourself, and that it doesn't take, I said, the bravery and the willingness to fail. But that doesn't mean that you go do something stupid.
Yeah.
And too many times people are like, well, moving out to California. I'm like, don't do it's one of the most expensive places to live in the world, and they're not looking for you. They don't know about you. So what you need to do first is make sure that there are tenements that you absolutely should have as an actor, period. And then secondly, start doing this. There's never been a better time, you know this, to be a content creator and start making your own stuff.
Yeah.
And not be beholden to a studio or a casting agent or a manager or an agent or any of those things, and just start doing this yourself. And then ultimately the best way to do it, because all of us started off doing it for somebody else, and now we're trying to do it for ourselves.
Yep.
Do it for yourselves first and make that successful. That'd be my advice to people.
Yeah. It's that thing where, it's easy to look at, because that's, again, not to talk about myself too much, but why
Please.
I made the show it was called How Did We Get Here, which was the idea of being like, here's my journey.
Right.
It's not special. Nothing I did was super, I didn't find like a secret. There was no treasure that I found doing what I did. I just worked hard. I did stupid shit. I took a leap of faith and a little bit of luck, and then shit works out.
But there's always hard work that is a common denominator in all
Yeah.
of that. You have the people that win the lottery. But even winning the lottery requires an action on your part, right? And a little bit of faith. And sacrifice. You have to give over your money, buy that ticket, scratch it off,
Yeah.
and then win. Most people will not make their way in the world through that. Since you won't brag about it, I will. Going to your show was a huge revelatory watershed moment, because here I'm in the Ace Hotel, or the Ace Theater,
It's the same place.
same place. They just put chairs out.
Yeah.
There's, I think, 17 people there, 18 people there, including myself.
20, including my mom.
And I've been to concerts before, man. I've been to loud concerts before. And your face shows up on a screen. You're not even out physically. And just your face. And it's like a Beatle, not even a Beatle, like John just got reincarnated. It was like, hello, everybody. And people the distortion that hits your eardrums, where it's at such a high decibel level that it can't even register. And I was like, holy shit. He's actually a big deal. And I'm...
It was until that moment.
It was
you
until
didn't
that moment
care.
I was like, I'm going to just on YouTube. But I was like, I had this overwhelming, undeserved sense of pride. I was like, holy shit, dude, because I don't know what that feels like, but I know what a version of that feels like when you do the one thing, like you dim the lights right before your show, and everybody is there, and that is a response of people that are ready for a good time.
Yeah.
And then you walked out, and I was like, damn, dude, I'd go home with you tonight. And
And you did.
And I did. And you came out, and you had a show but you also never lost a sense of yourself. Like it was always you on that stage.
Yeah.
And you did exactly what you just mentioned. You walked everybody through. And at the same time, Nolan and I were like trying to craft our live show, and it's like, let's make it bells and whistles, and let's make it huge, and let's make it this vaudeville thing.
Which is perfectly fine.
Sure.
If that's what you want to do.
If that's what you want to do, and the desire is for you to not ever say a damn thing. But you did. And
that's all I did.
That's all you...
I never shut the fuck up for 20 minutes.
But there was a statement that you were making, which is, and the most beautiful part was that you put people in your chair.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, I have given you all of the tools that were given to me.
Yeah.
You are now a YouTuber. You have the potential to be everything that I am and more. And I'm encouraging you to go out and do that. And I was like, wow, you brought your audience in so well. And it's constantly, even when we did the thing in London, I was like, fuck, I left our show and I went, we have completely neglected our audience in our entire live show. I love learning from you. I love that we can have conversations on rooftops that go instantly deeply philosophical.
And then turns into Nolan saying he wants to strangle you for your shitty hat.
And how awkward we can make Nolan, because he gets uncomfortable when it goes into those space really quickly.
Yeah, he's very Deadpool. He definitely epitomizes that character.
But he's not. That's what's so funny is like when you get Nolan, and I do, like we drive an hour and a half to our studio to do our show, an hour and a half each way. Mm-hmm. Sometimes 2 if traffic is shit, which in LA it quite often is. And that's when I get real Nolan. And there's been times when we're like, shut up, don't talk because we need to save this for the show. And other times when it's like, I need to get this out, and we absolutely cannot talk about this on the show.
Yeah.
And that's the
well, I mean, just to throw it back to you, because that was the thing. Hanging out with you and Nolan is very...
That was a good night.
Life affirming, because you guys obviously are older than I am, but clearly.
Clearly.
Even though I'm far grayer than you are. But when I sit down and talk with you guys, it's that thing where it's like bouncing it down the rung, where I talk to people in my audience who may be younger, who are going through shit, and I'm like, I just can't shake the feeling of trying to please everybody and perception and trying to be like there for everybody all the time. And you guys are like, you're there and you've lived your life and you have so many experiences. And that one time, what was the name of that pub we went to?
Which one?
Bangers and Mash.
Oh, dude, you're talking about Farm and Hill. It's called...
I fucking forget the name.
Why am I telling? I tell you, Punch Bowl. Oh my God.
Punch Bowl.
I give everybody that recommendation. Punch Bowl. Farm and Hill Street in Mayfair.
We had that night where it was right after that Retro Replay show at the Comic-Con, and then we went and we sat, but I wasn't sitting with you guys as voice actors. I wasn't sitting with you as like these people. It was just like friends hanging out, and you guys told me stories from your past. It was you guys across from me.
Right.
And I felt like my 2 dads teaching me how to go through life.
Scotch eggs in front of us.
First time I ever had a Scotch egg, and I've never looked back since.
I mean...
But it was that moment where... Because the last year for me has been like a huge transitional period. And there was a lot of stuff in that where I was like, you've gone through shit. Like, it was stories about relationships, specifically. And you were telling me some stories, and I was like, holy fuck, I did not know this. But it wasn't only that I was learning from it, but I felt like I was like part of it, and I felt like I was like involved and part of like the friend circle. Yeah. And it's that kind of stuff that I always gravitate towards. I like those conversations, and that's why we decided to do this kind of thing, was because I like to get to know people. You can't get to the bottom of a person in 90 minutes, but I like conversation. I like getting to know people and talking through their life experiences and why they do what they do and the kind of anxieties and trepidations that they go through.
I think it's possible to get to the depth of someone within 90 minutes, depending upon that person. I would just hope that to get to that depth could take 90 minutes. And then once you're there, it's like, oh my gosh, there's the depths are vast.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's this is the bottom of the well and there's nothing here. I view it as like that cavernous space. It's like, okay, there's all this shit that sits on the surface that either through my own, like you had mentioned, like the sense of yourself that you're projecting. I feel that we all do that. I really struggled with that. I thought there was a version of me that you wanted to see.
Yeah.
And so I project that, and I still struggle with that, but it's predominantly because it's not out of fear that you won't like the real person that I am. It's just me kicking bad habits. It's the same guy that's like, I know these things are gonna kill me, man, but I just can't quit.
Yeah.
It's that kind of. We understand it's bad for us. It's just the same guy that sits in traffic and yells at a car.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to be that guy anymore. I still just kind of like that compulsion rears up in me, and I think something that was a huge unlock for me was that wherever there is anger, there's hurt, and the maddest person in the world, and the person that is so, like, I love the word vitriol that you use. It's this vitriolic thing, and people are just spewing hate. At the root of it is hurt. And when you start viewing and focusing and fixating on people's hurt rather than their anger, it allows you, it compels you to instead come from a place of compassion.
Yeah.
And that's the Wang Chung of it, man. I feel if you can somehow find that place to come to someone, you're like, hey man, who are you really mad at?
Yeah.
You know?
My dad.
Why is that really important to you?
For me, the thing for me was that when I started off doing this, I had no opinion of myself. I was yelling into a void, being like, who am I? You inform me of who I am.
Was that your discovery?
Yeah.
Or was that the experiment? It was like, were you aware that you were trying to fill that identity up with this, or were you just...
Not even in the least.
Cool.
Hindsight's 2020, but at the time I was miserable, had no job. I hated where I lived. I hated myself. I was so miserable and depressed. So I was yelling into a void, hoping people would yell back. And then in the midst of doing that, people started reacting. And it got away from me super fast. And it got to a point where I couldn't contain it anymore. I couldn't control it. The popularity of it was way beyond me, which was absolutely fantastic. I loved every aspect of it. But in doing that, later on after doing that, it was that thing where I realized people had picked up a version of me. You were a version of yourself that people find, and it takes about 2 years to break that version through effort on your own part for people to change their perceptions of you. And it's still a thing that I'm like going through now, where I'm like, that was amazing. I love doing that, but that's not me anymore, because now I'm a happier person. I like who I am, so I can't be that like yelling into a void person anymore, because that just doesn't feel like me anymore. But even doing these types of things where I feel like sometimes I'm in that headspace where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna say this thing because that's what I think people want me to say. And it's still something I'm trying to break through. And these types of conversations with people have been really informative. And like I said, talking to you guys that night, where I'm like, everyone kind of goes through that shit, and I'm trying to figure out how I articulate thoughts now versus a version of myself that people already have of me, where I'm trying to break that. And I'm not trying to break it in a way that like I'm shameful of that. I don't like that I did that. It's nothing like that. I just feel like I've transitioned so much as a person over the last year and a half that people are still locked into this older version of me, which is completely fine. That's when everything was kicking off for me. But it's trying to transition people away from that into a different version of myself that I feel like is still the same person, but mellowed out. And I'm happier, and I just want to chill, and I'm not trying to gain anymore. I obviously still want stuff to do well, but I'm kind of just like sitting in it and having fun and being like, yeah, top of the morning and all that, but at the same time, like, let's just do some weird, wacky shit.
Will you ever let me get away from the version of myself that you found?
Yeah. When will I stop being green hair to you? When will I stop being yelling and swearing? I've had a lot of people being like, I miss when he sweared. Or swore, I should say. But I miss that version of him, because they relate to that, and that's who I am to them, and that's who they want me to be, and that's their safe space. And I get that, but I'm also like, there's also a safe space here that we can move to, that I can still bring you along, and we can all grow together, and I don't have to be... The thing that buzzed me, and it was it was something that Joe Keery did recently from Stranger Things. Steve Harrington. He cut his hair. Everyone lost their shit. All his comments. He released a new album. Fucking phenomenal music.
Really?
He goes by DJ O or Joe, I guess. But he released a new album. It's awesome. But all anybody can talk about is his hair. And I'm like, I've been there.
Because this iconic thing, that's what we knew you from.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm doing new things. I'm doing cool things. I'm doing stuff that, sure, may not be blockbuster. It may not be like Happy Wheels or anything like that anymore. But I'm in this nice, comfortable space where I feel like I'm doing cool shit, but people won't let me sit in it because they want me to be that. And they want to talk about hair, and they want to talk about swearing and top of the morning. As soon as I change my intro or outro, it's like, where's this? That's all anybody can talk about. Like, well, I can't grow as a person if you constantly want to pull me back down to what I was in a state where I was not comfortable, I was not happy, I was going through shit, and I get that you're still going through shit, but I've circumnavigated that in a way, so let me help you get to that point as well. But people want the safe space. And it's no fault of the audience, it's just the way things are. I've had a hard time articulating that to people.
I feel that people, we naturally gravitate towards familiarity. At this moment, my birthday is April 1st. And so I was surprised by someone coming over to our house and doing this thing that I love her. And she's a legit shaman. Like, she went to Africa for 5 years. She can trace back her teachings to lineage. I'm like, cool. And I love her dearly. But there's only my cynical self will only go so far with that. She comes over and she's like, I'm here to give you a Reiki massage. I'm like, why not? Let's do it. Let's go in the backyard. Pam's got it all laid out. And I sit there and she plays some music. She says some things. She like touches like whatever. And then about 15 minutes goes by. And she goes, why don't you go and sit on that? I'm like, and I felt great. I did. I felt refreshed. And I was like, that was cool. About 15 minutes, she goes, we've been out here over an hour. And I went, what? We've been out here for over an hour. And there was one moment in that 15 minutes, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but like, if you sit very, very still and you kind of like close your eyes or whatever, you know your hands are there. This is going to sound super high, by the way. You know your hands are there, but because you haven't moved them in a while, you just need to wiggle them. Just to,
Or they'll like melt into the table.
or just you feel disassociated from them because you haven't moved them, because we're constantly in motion and reaffirming that our fingers and our feet and our nose and everything are there.
Yeah.
I told her that. She was like, welcome to your first out-of-body experience. I'm like, no, I didn't like an astral projection. She goes, that's not an out-of-body experience. Your out-of-body experience is when your mind allows itself to detach itself from the physical and the corporeal, and that's your truest self. And I went, oh, she goes, it was super uncomfortable for me. She was like, we don't like not being constrained by what we don't know, or by what we do know about ourselves. So that feeling of people reject this sense of me, it's like, I remember going to concerts, and when you hear a live version of a song that you really, really love, it could be a better version of that song, but you're like, no, I reject that. It's
not what I wanted.
It's not what I wanted. It's because it's not what I know. And you always hear people say people reject change. That's not true. People reject change until they see the benefit to themselves. And so sometimes I feel it takes a little while longer for people to realize the benefit of that change, and for them. And often, man, if your change is brought about by growth, most people, if they're not actively getting after it and they're growing themselves, your growth is a reflection of their lack of growth. And that is something that people find really dissonant with who they are.
Yeah.
So we cannot concern ourselves with the thoughts of other people. This is the same thing we talked about in London. It's like, let your narrative be the strongest narrative. Let your version of yourself be the strongest. Most of us are still trying to figure out who the fuck we are.
Yep.
And I will be damned if I let somebody else tell me who I am without me finding out first. And it sounds like that's where you are. It's why I love being your friend, is because I learn almost as much about myself as I learn more about you.
That's very sweet. Yeah. What a great place to end it off.
It's a button, bitch.
So if you're going through shit, it'll all work out. Great. Well, thanks for being here.
Thanks for the talk.
Thanks for hanging out. We hung out longer than we were supposed to, but it's always a pleasure having a conversation with you.
Love more.
What?
Huh?
What did you say?
I didn't say anything. Did you say something? I kind of wanted to get into the story about...
What's
This
the
is a great
bonus story
B-roll.
that we're getting into?
the hotel
Oh.
in London.
I don't know. Tell.
Set the scene.
So we're at the Me Hotel in London. Great hotel. I've stayed there several times.
It's really nice.
This is in May,
For
right?
the Comic-Con thing.
So I get a room for me, room for Nolan, room for him. And we check in, and I was like, he will be arriving. And the room is under Sean McLaughlin. That's it. Nothing else. I guess we go check in.
Yeah, because I hadn't checked in yet. They were already checked in. And then we came back to the hotel. And I thought, they were talking about your partner or your friend, your coworker, whatever. And I thought they were talking about Nolan because he came back down saying his key didn't work.
Right.
And they were like, your friend is in room XYZ. And we were like, yeah. And I was like, I don't know what room I'm in yet. And they were like, 510, sure. So it was,
and then I was like...
It was all this confusion of who are you talking about?
Right. But then I was like, oh, can we can we get him bumped up or whatever? And he was like, absolutely. And the manager comes bounding out and because we were just dealing with one of his colleagues or whatever, the manager of the hotel comes out and he was like, we had a little surprise for you in your room, but we will be happy to move that to your new room. I was like, okay, great. Like a fruit plate or whatever.
Yeah.
Cut to.
Well, first of all, we went up to our rooms, got changed, nothing was crazy. And then room was super nice. Then I came down to meet you guys for dinner.
Yeah.
To go to Punch Bowl where we had these talks. And then two girls in the elevator, side story, was like
I forgot about them.
super drunk, very clearly dressed up to go out and have drinks.
And make
then
bad decisions.
we were sitting in the elevator and they were kind of like eyeballing me. And then we went down and they came out onto my floor. And they were like, oh, this is not the lobby. Okay. And then we went back in. They were like, thought we were going back to your room there for a second. And I was like, ha ha ha.
Ding! And the door is closed.
And then I was stuck in for like 5 floors down. And they were like, wouldn't mind going back to your room. And I was like, I really want to get out of this elevator. And then we got out, went out for...
Surely that'll be the weirdest thing that happens to you tonight.
Went out for dinner, had deep philosophical conversations, Scotch eggs and bangers and mash. Came back, and in my room was a fruit platter, or some sort of like food platter, but over the TV were 4 Polaroids of my face stuck to the TV. They were not good Polaroids. They were teeny tiny in one corner, and they were like pictures of like my alter ego, a picture of me with green hair. And I just sent a picture to you on text being like, what the
He was like, so this is what I walk into his room, and it's like printed out, taped to the room, and he was like, the manager of the hotel, and he was like, by the way, if I'm not at breakfast in the morning, it's because I've been murdered.
Yeah.
Clearly. And like the manager, because he's like, we have a surprise for you in your room, and so he tells me this, and I was like, holy shit, man. Holy shit. Wait a minute. Think about this. It's not a common name, but it's not a horrifically unique name. So that guy had to be sitting there and not going like, maybe it's the same Sean McLaughlin. There could be what if it was some like business guy there on a...
There's a comedian named Sean McLaughlin who gets
and he
caught for
walks
me all
in,
the time.
and then he trumps it and goes, and then to think it is the right Sean McLaughlin, and what I want and what I demand in all of my hotel rooms is pictures of myself.
Yeah, it's like
crudely pasted to the wall.
It's like I cascade down my career being like, is this the energy I give off where I want pictures of my face in my hotel room?
The balls on this guy. Holy shit. Oh, it was so great. Such a great moment.
And I died that night.
And you died that night, and this is the ghost ever since.
Yeah, and then we came to Nolan the next morning and told him the story. He was like, I want fucking pictures of
I
my
was,
face in my
like,
room.
why are there no pictures of me? Go to my IMDb.
No one wants
and-
pictures of Nolan North.
Not even Nolan North.
I need to pee.
Go pee pee.
I'm gonna cut them.
Yes, please.
Yeah.